Good afternoon. This is Albert Pineda with my insight sharing presentation for week 4. Obeying spiritual laws brings both temporal and spiritual blessings. In the Old Testament, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 26, verses 3 through 5, the Lord gives Moses some wonderful promises to us when we obey the commandments, specific blessings that could be in store for us. So from verses 3 through 5, we read, "If ye walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. And your threshing shall reach unto the vintage, and the vintage shall reach unto the sowing time. And ye shall eat your bread to the full, and dwell in your land safely." So what we can gather here is that the Lord is promising temporal blessings, along with the spiritual blessings that we would receive through being obedient to his commandments. And for the saints at the time of Moses, I would imagine a good portion of them, the majority of them, were in fact farmers. In fact, I'm not a farmer myself, so I couldn't tell you everything that would be required in when it comes to farming. But I do understand that to properly sow your crops and to cultivate your crops, you need a substantial amount of water. And the most abundant source of water that they could ever receive would be through rainfall. So rain would obviously be a very important temporal blessing. In fact, maybe the most important blessing that the saints could give. So it's interesting to read in verse 4 that the Lord promises, "Then I will give you rain in due season," as a blessing for being obedient to the commandments. So obviously, in our own day and time, temporal blessings are very important to us, and it's I think spiritually edifying to know that we can be blessed temporally because the Lord wants us to take full advantage of the earth that He's given us. So, in regards to temporal blessings and throughout examples in church history, one of the most famous ones that I really enjoyed learning about as a youth was the story of Lorenzo Snow, who was the fifth president of the church in this dispensation, who felt prompted and inspired to visit the saints in southern Utah, particularly in St. George, in May of 1899. In the church manual, Teachings of the Presidents of the Church, Lorenzo Snow, in chapter 12 of that manual, we learn about this story. And it's interesting to note from the story that we learned from the manual that Lorenzo Snow had no idea why he was supposed to visit the saints in the southern part of Utah. He just felt prompted and inspired to. So he gathered a number of the brethren with him to go and do special conferences for these saints. And it was there that he received direct revelation from the Lord that the saints needed to pay an honest tithe in order to receive blessings that they were in need of at the time. And we learned that the saints were in dire need of rain because the saints of Lorenzo Snow's time, very similar to the saints of Moses' time, were farmers. And because of the severe drought that they were going through, they were facing some very difficult challenges when it came to harvesting their crops. So through the acting on the promises that the prophet had given the saints, that if they did pay a full tithe, that they would be blessed. Sure enough, the saints were blessed with 2.93 inches of rain, more than they had received in the previous 13 months combined. So we can see that from this wonderful example that the saints were blessed because of their obedience to spiritual laws. They were blessed with temporal blessings, which were really important to them. With further research in regards to temporal blessings, from LDS.org, Obeying Spiritual Laws Brings Forth Temporal and Spiritual Blessings, we read that consistent spiritual obedience gives us confidence that the Lord will answer our righteous desires. It begins with faith and grows into peace, knowing we know the future is full of hope. I can testify that we can have hope in this life when we obey the will of the Lord. And we can be blessed spiritually, but we can also be blessed with the righteous desires of our heart in temporal ways. Because again, the Lord wants us to enjoy the good things of this earth. And the temporal aspects are very important to enjoying the good things of this earth. So I'm very grateful again for the Lord giving us commandments and giving us blessings and promises that we will be blessed through our faithfulness and obedience to these commandments. Thank you very much.